morning. Shari Sanders has the evening off. At the top of the news, America and its allies honored their aging heroes today, the men who saved the day and the world with the invasion of Normandy on D-Day. As President Clinton told them at one point, you did your job, now we must do ours. Mark Strassman reports.
Today, many of them are here among us. Oh, they may walk with a little less spring in their step, and their ranks are growing thinner. But let us never forget, when they were young, these men saved the world.
It was a day of generational tribute, reaching from the back half of this century to the front half, to another era that made this one possible. All day in Normandy, D-Day vets got their due and gave their own reflections. Walter Ehlers returned to Omaha Beach, where he lost a brother.
Many of those who enjoy freedom now know little of its price. This anniversary must not be only in a remembrance, but a new beginning.
D-Day vet Elvin Underleiter had a different thrill, helping President Clinton lay a wreath at the American Cemetery.
I'm not there for me. I'm there for the 29th Division and our comrades that fell on these beaches. All in all, in every respect, that it was a great day. It was great. It was well planned. They took consideration of us veterans in every way they could.
They seem such unlikely heroes today, and the scope of the invasion seems unfathomable a half-century later. Maybe for both reasons, President Clinton ended his day walking alone on Omaha Beach, like the rest of us, trying to get more in touch with a turning point in history. These vets now return home with much more than just memories of a trip to Europe. They have something that most vets complain they never get, public acclaim for their service, a simple thank you. In Normandy, Mark Strassman for NBC News.
And while the United States and its allies celebrated the anniversary of D-Day, as Steve Handelsman reports tonight, President Clinton was distracted by the possibility of a new war halfway around the world, this time in Korea.
The communists who control North Korea's powerful military implied again today they might react with force if the United Nations leans on them economically. Sanctions, the communist government said, mean outright war. But President Clinton, who's had to manage the Korean crisis from France, emphasized sanctions may not be necessary. There's still time for North Korea to change its course, Clinton said. We are not trying to provoke North Korea. It is too late for UN inspectors to check fuel rods the North Koreans are taking from their reactor. But the communists could permit checks of waste dumps and record rooms, allowing inspectors to see if fuel's been diverted to make atom bombs. So the UN takes up sanctions tomorrow.
One of the objectives of the further UN Security Council action is to convince North Korea that it must take immediate corrective steps.
So far, there's no sign that North Korea's moved missiles or men closer to South Korea. But analysts say the U.S. should anticipate a cross-border assault without warning.
I think it may prove to be worth risking war to deny North Korea nukes against the possibility that we will have a war several years later against North Korea with nukes.
But war is the last resort. The U.S. strategy now is to go slow. Voting UN economic sanctions could take weeks, enough time for the communists to back down without looking like they were forced. I'm Steve Handelsman, NBC News, Washington.
How do you feel about sanctions against North Korea? North Korean officials said again today any sanctions would mean outright war. Well, tonight we ask our viewers in our daily news poll if they favored sanctions against North Korea, and 95% of those who called said they were in favor of those sanctions. We thank those for taking part. We'll have another poll tomorrow at 6. Back here in the fourth stage tonight, a 22-year-old Neosho man is now sitting behind bars facing felony arson charges. Jason Pierce told investigators that he purposely set some of his landlord's property on fire. Associates of his also told officials that Jason had been bragging about the blaze.
The house was intentionally set on fire using trash and debris that was found inside the house. No flammable accelerants were used. Investigation was conducted and some witnesses interviewed, and through the interview of these witnesses led us to a suspect. The suspect was questioned and a statement was obtained and an arrest was made following his statement.
Pierce faces Class C felony arson charges and he is currently in custody on $50,000 bond. Still to come tonight on KSN, a four-state community is another step closer to hiring a new city manager. Details after this. That story.
Jackson County officials are sending their prisoners all over the region, and that means to Joplin as well. City Council approved a measure that would allow the city jail to take in around 10 prisoners a year. The court has ordered Jackson County to reduce their inmate population. They'll have to pay Joplin $42 a day for each prisoner kept, and that could mean up to $60,000 a year for the city.
These will be nonviolent prisoners who are sentenced to a jail term of a year or less in Kansas City. And if we have any problems with any of those prisoners, we simply call them up and tell them to come pick them up and take them back to Kansas City. When they're released, they are not released on the streets of Joplin. They're transported back to Kansas City where they're processed out up there.
In another issue, City Council approved a plan to temporarily ban nighttime parking on Main Street. The move is being made as an effort to curb cruising and problems downtown businesses have complained about.
Yes, it was initiated by some of the business people in the downtown area through the police department, and the police department's results from their detail of what they found, it would reduce loitering and vandalism.
City officials will be going to the public on August 2nd to ask permission to go in debt to pay for improvements to be made to the Turkey Creek wastewater treatment plant. The mayor says the move would mean cleaner water for residents.
We have been told from the federal government and the state of Missouri that we need to increase the size of our treatment plant. We are trying to raise our indebtedness. We will not be raising taxes.
Finally, the city council members went into closed session to discuss the 4 city manager candidates. They want to narrow that number and visit the finalist hometowns before a decision is made. In Joplin, Don Taylor, KSN News Center.
In the midst of hot, dry weather throughout southeastern Kansas, state and local officials are drumming up some remedies to last fall's flooding. The Flood Solution Task Force met in Pittsburgh today discussing proposals from 6 for an engineering and hydrology study of Crawford County. Task Force members also got an update on a flood buyout program. Under that program, county and city officials buy homes in the floodplain and forbid any other property to be built on the area again. Officials must apply for that flood buyout program by next Monday. In economic news tonight, a brief afternoon rally fizzled and the stock market finished mixed today. We have more in tonight's business briefing brought to you by Commerce Bank.
Corporate mergers tops today's business news. GM's Electronic Data Systems division has broken off merger talks with Sprint, citing financial terms as the main reason. GM is still considering a spin-off of its EDS unit. Cox Enterprises has agreed to pay Times Mirror $2.3 billion for its cable systems. The combined company will make it one of the 3 largest cable operators in the country, reaching some 3 million homes. Sarah Lee says it will slash 6% of its worldwide workforce. The restructuring plan will save the company about $250 million annually, starting in 1998. And H.J. Heinz & Company is looking to buy another foreign baby food company. Heinz is conducting talks with companies in several countries, with South Africa being the prime target. Over on Wall Street, after an almost full-day rally, the Dow gave back some strength to finish down 370 to 3768.52. That's a look at today's business news. I'm Sue Herrera.
Not a bad day for four-state weather. Some folks got some rain, and some people are going on a nice trip.
And the people going on a trip, the
George A. Spiva Center for the Arts and the Joplin Convention and Visitors Bureau. The new construction has mixed with the old as much as the original charm is still in effect.
We have here what is, I think, a seed for redevelopment downtown and a way to help downtown business come back to life and to give something in the four-state area for the people to do in downtown Joplin.
The Art Center opens Friday with an exhibit of a Joplin artist work. Kathy Dutar's paintings and prints from the 60s through the 90s already fill the Spiva Center. That exhibit runs through June 17th. Well, as veterans and dignitaries return to France for the D-Day observance, so can you. At least that's what people who play D-Day board games claim. John Portsburn shows us their historical hobby.
Allied naval forces, supported by strong air forces, began landing Allied armies this morning on the northern coast of France.
And for a small group of people, that invasion continues 50 years later with D-Day board games. Some refer to them as paper time machines.
Your basic customer is male, between 20 and 30, 35.
People like Kevin Lochran.
How accurate are these games? Well, as accurate as can be. The pieces actually reflect the capabilities of the units that were actually historically involved. And you kind of get to place yourself in the position of a commander without any of the risks.
Kiss me once and kiss me twice and kiss me once again.
But victory for the Allies is not always guaranteed.
With a bad series of dice rolls for the Allies and just everything going wrong that day, I've seen them push back into the sea.
And with the current D-Day anniversary, sales are up. The same thing happened during Desert Storm with Gulf War games.
And some of these games are used by the military today to study current situations.
And with titles like Korea, 1995, The Next War in Asia, it's important to keep reminding yourself these are only games.
Nobody gets hurt. It's just cardboard.
I'm John Pertzborn for KSN News Center.
Still to come tonight on KSN, there's a new twist to an old game. We'll find out more after this.
3 reasons for mammograms at Mount Carmel Medical Center. Each of these women is alive today thanks to early detection and treatment of breast cancer at Mount Carmel. Expert mammograms can detect a tumor 2 years earlier than other methods. Mount Carmel has one of the finest mammography services available, the first accredited in southeast Kansas. So why a Mount Carmel mammogram? These are just some of our best reasons.